Everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Real Talk series. I'm Joe Caprio, co-founder at Reprise, and I'm really, really excited to be here again with the members of the PreSales Collective. I think we've got an awesome show for you today. I had a prep session with each of our panelists. It was a really engaging conversation, and I'm like really, really excited for this one. James is always asking us to kind of make it a debate and make it a play fight. And so the topic for today's webinar is, who owns the demo? And so, we may get some conflicting opinions here, and that's okay. But I think the real goal for us is to kind of educate the members of the PreSales Collective on what's happening out there in the world of SaaS, and how those changes are kind of impacting us and our job every day. And so I'm going to walk through the panelists right now. We're going to introduce ourselves, and I've thought of a decent icebreaker for this topic. And so we're going to go top to bottom here. We're going to give our name. We're going to talk about what we do, and then we're going to share the first product experience a prospect can have with our company. And so I'll go first. I'm Joe Caprio. I'm the co-founder at Reprise. And the first time that you could experience my product is on half of my customers' websites. We build product-led website tours and live asynchronous sales demos, and we put them out there for the world to see. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, you can touch my product like every 3 days. I'll post a version of it. So that's me, what I do, and when you could see my product. We're going to go with Brian Crofts, my friend from Pendo, next.
Awesome. So yeah, name's Ryan Crofts. What do I do? My kids tell me all I do is talk on the computer all day, or talk to the computer all day. So I guess that's my job. But what my title is a chief product officer. So really kind of own the end-to-end experience with Pendo. But so for us, and it's an interesting one. We literally had an initiative at the company called Walk the Product-Led Talk, meaning we were talking about it, but were we really walking it? Were we really living? And we realized, man, we need a free version of Pendo. We want people, especially if it's product engineers, they need to they don't want to talk to a salesperson. They want to touch it and feel it and use it and experience the value before they talk to a salesperson. So about a year ago, we realized we really need a free product. So today you can go to, I think it's pendo.io/free-Pendo, and then you can get started and start using the product today. So
amazing.
That's it.
Thank you, Brian. Next, we'll kick to Andre. And Andre, is it okay if I call you Dre on the call today?
No problem. No problem.
Excellent.
Hey guys.
I think it's Doctor, right?
Dr. Dre. That works for me. Thanks, Brian. My name is Andre Newman. I'm a product marketer here at Troops. The first way you can interact with our product today is via Reprise's demo on our website. However, in about a month, we will probably have a brand new free trial that I'm currently designing that I'm very excited about. So yeah, keep an eye out for that as well.
Bravo, sir. And Tristan, take us home.
Thanks, Joe. Tristan Tao, VP of Solutions at Iterable. The first time you can interact with our demo is probably the least cool out of everybody who've talked so far. We try to get that out there with GIFs and videos, and you can find that in our prospecting emails on our website. But the true first time you get to see it is a demo, and it is after, as Joe mentioned, 2 separate discovery calls. So it's a little bit gated today.
Okay, Tristan, we're going to put a lot of pressure on you during the session, I fear. We're going to see. Yeah, we're going to see how this rolls out. So, hey, why don't I kind of kick us off? I'll do a couple of slides, and then we're going to get into a panel discussion. And the first thing I like to do is kind of remind the audience, this is a webinar series that Reprise and PreSales does together. This is our 5th one. And a lot of what we've done in 2020 was about the working relationship between pre-sales and account execs. And the next batch of webinars we're going to do, we're going to go deep on the concept of a demo. And right now we're going to talk about who is in charge of your product demo. And on the next session, we're going to talk about how that's changing over time and the various ways we're expected to demonstrate our product. And then we're going to wrap this series of Real Talk webinars up with a best practice session, which is going to go into how to do demonstrations and how to resonate with your customers. And so I'm really, really excited about the content that we're doing with my friends at PreSales, and I'm pumped for today's episode. So let me kind of set the stage, and then we'll get into the panel discussion. And for the audience, if you want to ask questions over chat, my friend Alex is kind of manning the chat bot, and there'll be a slide at the end where we take live questions. And so feel free throughout the show today to kind of weigh in over chat and tell us what you want to know about. So my first thing I'd say is a little bit of background on my point of view on today's topic, right? Who's in charge of your demo? I'm talking about a demo creation platform or a demo engineering team is kind of the thesis for Reprise. And the problems we went out to solve initially were, sales teams going, live on Zoom calls and demonstrating production environments, and those production environments going down or having bugs, and that killing your live demo. Or maybe your product's a little more stable and mature, but you still have to wonder, what data are you showing to your customers? Is it your data? Is it a customer's data? Is it one generic sandbox, but you have 5 different verticals you pitch into, right? Or maybe you're at a more mature company that's kind of established what their sandbox approach is, but now you've got new features coming out. And since you haven't dog-fooded those new features yet, you don't have a demo set to show customers. And so your product team spends quarters building the new stuff, and then your sales team goes months or even quarters unable to demonstrate that new stuff. And so that's the background of Reprise and my focus on owning a demo. But what we've found as we've gone to market is that there's a bit of a maturity curve that's taken place in SaaS right now. And in the early end of the market, you're kind of just building out an MVP, like you're lucky to have anything to show. And so you get away with a lot in the early stage. But as your company starts to grow, right, in complexity and in, spending power, you start to make investments in your demo over time. And we can borrow from some of the largest, most successful SaaS orgs out there, like Salesforce and Snowflake and Slack, and start to look at the demo engineering teams that they're creating. And so I've been talking a lot about demo engineering recently. And what I'd love to kind of do on this call is kind of give you a bit of a roadmap into where you might be in this journey and, what investments you might want to make to your demo account. And so we're kind of thinking of the rise of the demo engineer, the rise of the demo engineer being a cross-functional approach based on the changing needs of a market. It's no longer enough to just load our product and do live improv on a sales call. They want it on the website. They want it over email. They want it without sales. They want your demo everywhere. They want to touch your product before they've even earned a right to. And so we're going to get into it right now with our panelists. I'm excited for this. We're going to lead with Brian, head of product at Pendo, and we're going to take a product leader's point of view on what it takes to demo properly. And then we're going to go into marketing, and we're going to kick to Dre, who's going to talk about how these changes are impacting a marketer's approach. And then we're going to wrap up with Tristan, who I think is probably closest to the audience. Tristan leads the solutions team at Iterable, and he's going to talk about the pressure and the changes this forces onto a proper pre-sales team. And that's basically going to be the flow for today's conversation. I'm going to go with Brian next, and I'm just going to ask you, like, really basically, talk to us about the rise of product-led. Talk to us about
Did it just freeze, or is I the only one?
I'm not sure. I'm frozen.
Okay.
Oh no.
Yeah, it froze for a second. I think we're good now.
Can y'all hear me okay?
And I think we're good. And I think the question you ended with like the rise of product led, what it means, right?
It's so funny, Brian. I'm seeing the chat. I don't know if y'all are seeing the chat, but everyone's like, the problem of live demos. It's so appropriate.
You planted that, Joe. I know you did, man. You're good.
I wish.
I mean, you're good.
Wish.
I didn't know you were that good. But
I'll give you the classic sales excuse. Oh, you know what? My chair was on the Ethernet cable. I think we're okay now.
Yeah, so look, the rise or the product-led motion or product-led organization is near and dear to my heart. I love it because, you talked about pressure. What I love in a product-led organization or company is ultimately that the pressure comes back ultimately to the product team to deliver the best product. So at the end of the day, we have this saying is like, word of mouth is number one. There is no number two. And, which basically for us, we have to have the best product. And if we have the best product, that means that sales job has an easier job because then people experience the value before they even have to sell it. If you have an amazing product, it's easier to support and you can kind of go beyond some of maybe the challenge or the technical issues and move into like, how do you help them with their business objectives and get it to the next level? I mean, I could go on and on, but at the end of the day, it comes down to, it's not product leading the company. I think that's the maybe the misnomer. It's putting pressure on the product team to build the best product so that it makes all of our jobs easier. And I think that's ultimately what I get excited about, is if everybody in the company is rallying behind the best product, it makes it easier, again, to allocate more resources and to invest more, because ultimately that is a huge factor, and best product wins. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to.
I love it. Yeah, it makes me think of something you said on our prep call was like this desire, right, to put the best product out there, this desire to be out front and like open about it. It really creates a need for our technology to be like flexed and chopped up and demonstrated in ways that, maybe weren't required in a traditional sales model where you do a 60-minute deep dive demo. You kind of need to break your product apart and help people experience it in a controlled way earlier in the motion, maybe without a sales guide. And so the next question I had for you, Brian, was, does this mean that product is in charge of the demo? If you're letting people in before sales has a chance to put their flair on it, do you think product owns the demo now?
I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's maybe, it's a kind of a hard question to answer, because I think if you're saying, like at the end of the day, what's the problem we're trying to solve? Like, the problem is we have prospects and buyers who want to experience and determine for themselves if there's the value. And so in it, when you think of it that way, then yes, we need to, in that situation, product absolutely has to think about, what does it mean to build a first use experience or a guided first use experience that allows to self-serve these people that come in. And so in that sense, they own, if you want to call it a demo. To me, product owns that first use experience to get them to really experience the value as soon as possible, or experience the benefit. So in that standalone case, product does own it. I don't refer to it necessarily as a demo, but you're right, it is what it is, but they're just jumping in and using it. So product owns that. But when I think about kind of maybe a more traditional demo, I don't think we own it. But one of the interesting things is we think about it, we talk about it a lot. Like, you'd be surprised, like, you think product management is always like, okay, you hope, what's the problem that we're solving? Are we solving it well, et cetera? But we also talk about, will this demo well? Right? There has been times that we have launched functionality or a chart or something that just demos well. So we think about, what does in fact demo well when we put it into the hands of our sales engineers or our sales team. So I think, yes, product owns the demo if it's a free experience. I think in other situations, I think product doesn't own it, but it's a huge factor in it. So.
I love it. And, there are a ton of really, really insightful comments and questions coming in the chat. I don't know if Brian and Tristan and Dre, if you're seeing them but I almost want to deviate from the presentation to just go live Q&A the whole time. But please, everybody, keep your questions coming, because Alex is kind of mining your questions, and there'll be a slide at the end where we'll up level the top like 3 or 4 questions, and I'll throw the panelists some curveballs. But Brian, back to your point, like I know Emily Dunn from Pendo, relatively well. And so I know you kind of have this blossoming demo engineering team, which is a topic I love to talk about. So maybe you could share with us how you're interacting with Emily's team, with the demo engineering team at Pendo. What's the product role on, a cross-functional demo approach?
Well, I mean, so first and foremost, we're super lucky to have people like Emily, people like our sales engineering team, who are fantastic. What's great about Emily is she actually comes from a sales background, and now sales engineer, and now demo engineer. And it's like, and then with that said, she's one of the better partners with product, right? Advocating for things that would take it from good to great, right? So the relationship is, at the end of the day, she's striving for a great demo. And she is not shy about telling us and giving us feedback on the things that we need to do or create or make it simpler so that there can be a better demo. So that's the relationship. But what's interesting is, like, if I take a step back and think about all the feedback that we get internally, some of the very best feedback that we get is from our sales engineering team, because it feels like that's where all, like, rubber hits the road, and either you have an amazing demo and or you don't. And that kind of, to me, that comes full circle back to the product. And so she's been an awesome advocate for what are the things that we need to do to make the best experience possible. And that's the relationship. And so valued member of the product team and active.
I like it, Brian, because I have a couple of experiences in my career where it felt more like the product was delivered to us, right? I'm a career sales VP. And so the product was delivered to us being account execs and pre-sales. And it's kind of like, I built this thing and it's awesome. And now go figure out how to demonstrate that awesomeness to the market. And it almost felt, their conveyor belt in the assembly in the factory, in the assembly line, their conveyor belt ended, and there's 10 feet of floor space between the sales assembly line could really pick up, and it felt like there was just this gap. And I think it's really progressive and forward thinking for product to maintain a huge fingerprint on the demo process, not because they're better salespeople than me or not because they're more technical than my pre-sales team, but like, y'all have the vision, you design the software, like you did it for a reason. And a lot of times that reason can be lost in the way we talk about and demo the product if I don't have that input from product.
Yeah, and I think on the flip side, like, what we owe sales engineering and sales teams is to sit on calls. Not, we use Gong, and so I'll listen to different sales calls, or I'll sit, back when we were in the office, sit and listen with a salesperson, listen, because to your point, we've thought so much about this. We've designed it in a certain way. We've built it. We know the why behind what we built. And we're always wanting to listen when they demo. Are they articulating the same kind of, like, pain that we're solving, or how we're solving it, or how it's innovative? And so we owe it back to them to, like, okay, we're giving you as much, hopefully, training and enablement as you guys need to sell and demo it. But then it's our responsibility to close that loop and saying, is that resonating? And especially in our case, like, we're product people who build and sell to product people. So, like, I'd be like, hey, don't frame it that way. That's not what matters to us. This matters to us. And I think that's applicable to any PM leader, but I think having that loop, that closed loop is really important.
Beautiful. Brian, thank you very much. I know how busy you are. I'm really grateful that you would come and do this with us. Let's think about Resonate. And I'm going to take us to our next guest, Andre, from product marketing at Troops. I think Troops does an amazing job, both with what they're building as a technology, but also the way they represent themselves in the world. I've been a fan for a while. I've used Troops in my last 3 companies. And so I'm wondering, Andre, if you could just kind of spin a bit about what's happening in B2B SaaS marketing right now. Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, of course. And Joe, thank you so much for the kind words. I think we all know that COVID, a lot of people talk about it as an accelerant to a lot of trends. And one of the trends that was already happening before this is that buyers wanted to educate themselves. Sales was coming into the conversation later in the buyer's journey. And I think COVID really did accelerate that in a big way. At the end of the day, B2B and B2C, the buying behaviors are converging. And when COVID started, a lot of people were working from home, and a lot of people had to be more resourceful and re-architect their work habits. That actually meant a ton of end users bought their own productivity software to address their own needs. And so I actually think the average person became a more sophisticated buying purchaser themselves. And so the goal of digital marketing today, it hasn't really changed, right? Help buyers understand why your solution matters with little to no effort required from their side. That means you need to have that aha moment that everyone talks about, accessible within 3 to 5 minutes, hopefully. And so things like having a prospect read your product page might already be asking too much. And don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of messaging, right? It's a big part of my job, and ROI metrics are fantastic and they help. But the truth is, every single SaaS vendor in your category probably has the same exact metrics on their website. And let's not forget that that doesn't address something that we can all relate to, which is emotion. But you know what does? Social proof. And so, people buy products that are either recommended to them by their friends or that have a strong review library with people that you actually trust, which is why things like G2 and collecting customer quotes has never been more important. But, bottom line, the only way that I would ever buy a software is if it checked 3 boxes. If it had, really rich product content that clearly outlined the use cases that I felt like would have an impact on my business, which means, wink, wink, having a tour like Reprise on your homepage so that people can experience it right away. They don't have to connect, they don't have to do anything specific. 2, actually touching the product yourself. It doesn't have to be in an in-depth way, but I want to actually touch it and make sure and confirm that it works, which means you need to have a free trial. I really recommend that everyone in marketing and product think about making a really nice free trial. And 3, having that social proof be accessible and all over your website. And so if you have those 3 core tenets, like you're educating, you're giving people a firsthand experience, and you have social proof everywhere. So you're putting yourself in a good position.
We talked a lot about this, Andre, in our engagement about the idea of the free trial. And I'm a huge advocate for free trials. I think you should do free trials. Even when I'm a sales-led organization, I coach my sales reps not to gate the trial experience and to be welcoming and not to be offended that they want to test your product, but they don't want to tell you who their mom and dad is, right? It's a good thing that they're interested in your technology. You should be happy about that. But it is really scary as an enterprise vendor. I'm worried they're going to get lost in the product. I'm worried it's not going to make sense to them. And I kind of want to withhold almost until I have won the business case and then just let them see that I'm right. And so from your point of view as a marketer who's advocating that every SaaS company do a free trial, maybe educate the audience, like what makes that hard? Why can't you just dump people in?
Yeah, no, it is really hard. And I'm going to give a quick plug here because OpenView, they're a venture capital firm. They have incredible content on product-led growth. I know, Joe, you wrote a piece for them recently, and I always pour through their blog. And 2 stats really stood out to me and, informed a lot of the things that I'm working on now. And that's that, 40 to 60% of people who actually sign up for SaaS applications never open them again. And 2, people spend like 20 to 30 minutes actually deciding whether or not your solution is the right fit for their problem. And so that's telling a story, right? The stakes are really, really high. And consumers don't have patience. They just don't. They're not going to wait 3 days for your amazing sales-led demo to prove them right or wrong about whether or not you have the right solution. They want instant gratification. They want to know now. They want to arrive to that demo that we just talked about and actually have 5 to 6 critical clarifying questions that will actually let them decide between competitors, right? They're already at the 80th or 90th percentile of the buying journey when they speak to the salesperson. And so unless you have a product like Calendly, which is like really catch-all, very simple, requires no business integration, it's not easy to put that aha moment right away within that time window of 20 minutes. It's just not. And so most B2B solutions, require things like build time, data access and permissions, security concerns. Maybe you have a Swiss Army knife and you service various personas and verticals, and it's really tough to fit that, right use case in that small gap of time. And so, in all honesty, B2B software teams, they have a big challenge where consumers want things to be frictionless as B2C, but at the end of the day, business purchasing processes are a bit more nuanced than that of consumers, especially if you're talking enterprise. So marketing teams need to get creative. Things like Reprise help. Things like in-product tours and guides that are really, really interactive help. Help centers that are actually really good help. Using Pendo or Intercom to like quickly prompt and anticipate users' needs based on their actual actions within the product help. Just a few examples.
Andre, there are 3 people in the crowd that are clamoring for Tristan. Say, we want Tristan, we want Tristan. And wait until we get this next slide, and then we'll kick to Tristan, because Brian said he kind of has a lot of oversight now on what the product experiences and the demo should be. And now, Andre, I'm going to ask you the same thing, and then we're going to go to the head of solutions, the sales engineer of our panel, and we're going to ask Tristan what he thinks next. But first, I'm going to go to you. Does marketing own the demo now at Troops?
So Troops is a very lean team. So I do carry the majority of the demo engineering and maintenance responsibilities. the SEs build highly custom demos for all of our important deals. I do not do that. But honestly, demo engineering is really time consuming and tedious. And so, one of the big reasons why we bought Reprise is it's really helped us dramatically increase our demo engagement. And also it made custom demos a bit more scalable. The one thing that I want to touch on before we hit Tristan is I don't think people talk about the fact that when you put your product up front, it makes alignment between SEs and product marketing so critical. Joe, we spoke about this a little bit in our previous conversation. Product marketers and sales engineers, bottom line, they have a very similar job. We're trying to show prospects why the product is valuable. And the only difference between SEs is that they do it live in calls and we make content about it. And so if I, as a marketer, own Reprise and the interactive tour experience for troops, then I'm also designing the buyer's first impression of our product's functionality and value. And so hopefully, if a prospect sees that, they're coming in and saying, hey, Mr. or Mrs. SE, I love that use case that I saw in your Reprise demo. Can you build this for me now? And that means that if that demo is not carefully vetted by your SEs and there isn't strong alignment on what should be the first impression, it can either be very difficult to build, not possible technically. If it's not, it's something SEs are comfortable actually building out, or they don't know how to do it, that's going to severely damage the customer experience. So I think PLG and putting the product up front is a really unique opportunity for SEs and product marketers to work more closely together and drive value in business in an entirely new way.
It's really insightful. I'm trying my hardest to pick a fight and get folks to claim ownership of the demo, but you're all either being really deferential because you're on a panel, or this is actually how it works. This must be a cross-functional discipline. This must involve every department. So far, every department except for sales. But I'll keep my opinions on check. Okay, let's get to Tristan here. Tristan, I'm going to start you off with something really high level here. Okay, just talk to us about the demo engineering efforts at Iterable, please.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you putting me at the end because I know I wanted to chime in at so many different moments, but I've been biding my time, so I'll stick with my section here. In terms of how demo engineering started at Iterable, I remember joining and, I have this blank environment. There was this button that said generate demo, and an engineer built it like a year and a half before I joined. And when I click it, 60% of the time it generates a demo environment, 40% of the time it destroys an existing one. It was a real roller coaster. And so simply out of necessity, we realized that we had to invest resources so that we can better manage our environments. And our initial effort was actually more aligned with Brian's effort in terms of having the product team help us own it because they own the core product. They can touch the core code versus for us to do it, it's a lot more challenging. But I found that more SaaS companies are not as open in terms of being on the product-led growth and not necessarily having the product team own the environment. And so we decided to invest in demo engineering. And one of our SCs actually became a demo engineer, and he loved it so much, he transitioned onto being a software engineer. That's how much he loved the coding and the tooling aspects of it. And since then, we've hired our first demo solutions, and we're looking for the second, and we're looking to double the team next year. So that's kind of where Iterable is today.
That's incredible. That's a journey already. How about like the impact of the DE team, or why does it matter? How do you impact your organization? How are you enabling or working with the other departments? Like, tell us how it benefits the business.
Oh man, demo engineering has been, out of all the different people I've hired, one of the highest leverage, highest return hire we've ever made, because what they do touches the entire go-to-market team. And it seems like Brian's organization, Dr. Dre and Dre's organization, everything that the demo engineer prepares impacts that. They do things like preparing demos for analysts, building tools for us to manage environments better, building tools to allow us to do things more scalably, honestly, building tools that are similar to Reprise as I look at more and more around your software. And the impact has been tremendous. I mean, from a product org's perspective, when we do a product launch, they actually use the tools we build to see what it's going to look like when it's populated with data, and it's part of the product development cycle. And the cross functionality of what they do is really, really deep, both into engineering, product, marketing in terms of the launch timeline, customer success when they show existing customers, and then finally sales. And for us, sales is a customer, but it's not the main customer. It's just one of the customers.
Yeah, that's really insightful. I have such a myopic view in the world. I'm always thinking how this interacts the sales team, and then I'm just being cute by saying, how does it impact the CX team and the marketing team? But in the back of my mind, I'm really just still thinking about those live demos that my team has to do and those deals we have to close. Man, I'm really so grateful for the information that the three of you have been willing to share with us. And let's take it to Tristan's final question. And this is kind of a kick to the audience. It's been a career path at Iterable. Do you think that folks in the audience should view this, as an additional career path beyond just the door of sales engineering leadership, but maybe demo engineering is a legitimate path you might take? Talk to us about it.
I absolutely think so for a couple of different reasons. One, we're looking to hire and we can't find them. So there's such a huge demand for demo engineers because it feels relatively nascent. I think some of the more traditional orgs like QBranch has had these teams, but it's becoming increasingly more popular. Different companies that I talk to have different companies that I talk to have different teams that are all looking for demo engineers. And so from that perspective, with the explosion of demo tools, it obviously feels like a new career path that people can follow. And from my perspective, it reminds me a little bit of, if you were a Salesforce admin in 2000s, that was just maybe a crummy job. And then fast forward, you're head of ops. That's really what revenue ops has done over the last 20 years. And when I look at the parallel of how this space is evolving from a tooling investment perspective and the go-to-market motion as a whole, I think there's a huge path forward in this new role, expanding and owning more of the go-to-market motion. That's just my opinion.
Well said. Well said.
I was going to say, Joe, it kind of reminds me of like the classic, like, if it's important, make it somebody's job. And it's like, this is so incredibly important. What if you had somebody because I would say, when somebody just just crushes a demo so good, like, it's like, can you just do that all the time? And that's all you do. And so it definitely feels like that would be an amazing rollout of the company and a major asset. So
here. Let's take a couple questions. Sorry, let's take a couple questions from the audience. I'm incapable of reading and speaking at the same time, so we're gonna go to Krista for our first question, and she types in, and this is for anyone on the panel. She says, "Can you talk about what exactly a demo engineering team does? Is there room for SEs to go off script based on a prospect's needs, or am I thinking about this the wrong way?"
I can go. So I think demo engineering is still new. That's why it means a little bit different depending on the company. And taking a step back, if you're an SE, an SE does different things at different companies. And for a demo engineer, it's something similar. Your ultimate goal is to own this concept of a demo, but that could mean owning the demo tools. That could mean owning the demo environment. That could mean building very, very customized demo. And so for our demo engineer, one person, it means actually building tools that allow us to scale, allows us to deploy new environments, as well as building very, very specialized demos for our top 3 accounts. It's really, really focused. Those are the accounts that we have to win. That's how we're leveraging them today. But again, that could also evolve as the space heats up, which it constantly is every day.
I love it. This next question is from Ryan, and I feel like it's geared towards Brian. And Ryan asks, where in the product development lifecycle do you ask yourself, will this demo well, right? Where do you start to ask that question?
Well, I mean, at the earliest design stages. I mean, when we're doing design reviews, so a design review, where are we at with a design review? Design review is, we have a hypothesis. It's been slightly validated by some feedback, some light feedback, and then it kind of moves to, in today's world, you can move to a really high fidelity design pretty quickly. And I think as we go to get into that stage and we start reviewing stuff, it's just more like, either number one, it pops out as like, this will demo really well, or we can say, hey, there's a ton of value. Is there something that we could add that increases the power of the demo? So maybe it's missing something, a little shinier that if we just added, and it's relatively cheap, that we could do. So I think that's the first time it shows up, is in the first time we see mock-ups, both in terms of, wow, this will demo well, or wow, how can we make this demo better? So I think it's very early on. I mean, at the end of the day, we're a startup, so we're very sales conscious, right? Like, we're building products that hopefully solve big problems that people want to spend a lot of money on. And so we connect those dots. We're not purists. Like, we just have to build the most amazing product. They have to figure it out. It's let's make it pop and make it so they can't imagine not using the software after they see it. So.
And I just want to piggyback on some of the things that Brian just talked about here, because, and this is, I come from a marketing background, but there is a big difference between demo candy and something that is incredibly valuable and will build lasting value. And sometimes those features that will build that very sticky value, it really isn't that obvious to people early on. It's not as catch-all. It needs to be more specific and customized. And so for that very reason, just sometimes you do need to kind of consider those products that are more catch-all, that really will impress people on a call and hook them, both from a marketing perspective, a sales perspective, and a product perspective. And again, this whole PLG motion, the overarching point here is that it's really just a complete alignment around one thing, which is customer experience between every single department.
You're here. I've got another audience, a question from the audience that I hope this is fun, but it may get the panelists to clam up a little bit. Alejandro asks, can you speak about a time where a live demo didn't work when you were presenting and how you dealt with that situation? Any of our brave panelists willing to talk about it? Like earlier on this webinar when my Wi-Fi went out, how do you handle it? Anyone have a horror story they want to share with the audience?
Well, I can say, like, when you're the product person and you're demoing the product and it doesn't work, there's nobody to blame. So
that's an Elon Musk, Brian, when he throws the ball through the windshield of his car live on stage, right?
I've always wanted Elon Musk moments, and unfortunately that's my only Elon Musk moment, is that right there. But I think it feels pretty stupid when it doesn't work. But at the same time, what's funny is when I'm presenting to other product people, they're like, "Oh, dude, I totally get it." It's like, it's this actually like empathy builder. But man, what a whiff when something doesn't work, and then you realize it's because you had your settings wrong or something like that, and you just whiffed the demo. There wasn't a technical issue, but one of the more embarrassing things for sure.
I could relate there. I think that as a salesperson, sometimes the temptation is to explain what went wrong. And it's probably the last thing that you want to do because you don't really know what went wrong. And so I had a rep on my team that was learning about, various coding languages, and he had a demo on a call. Product went down and he said, "Oh, I think the engineers put the wrong Python into." You're not really going to make any progress with people there.
He's thinking snakes. Yeah. You can lose credibility pretty quickly there. You're just making stuff up. That's great. That's a classic.
Hey, Tristan, you came off mute. I don't know if you were going to be brave here and share a personal horror story.
Oh man, humility is one of our core value. There's a low stake situation, a high stake. The low stake was when we just started. I hit refresh on the dashboard and just a million errors came out, and I was just newish, so I didn't even know what any of it meant, and I was just struggling. And I looked up, and the buyer's CTO was just laughing because, from his perspective, this was a relatively smaller account. He's like, "Yeah, that happens to us all the time." In fact, this morning, and he just went into the spiel of why it was happening to him, and I felt a lot better. On the other hand, there were times when we would do live demos in front of, let's say, an analyst, let's say Gartner, etc. There was one time when a message did not show up when it was supposed to, and one of it was just slightly delayed. It was the internet connection. It was truly the internet. We blame the internet always, but this time it was actually the internet, and the size of the image we used was a little large. It was a long story there, but was like 15 seconds of just deathly silence. And then we finally got through it and it all worked out well, but lesson learned for sure. And I think every SC has that. Every SC has that.
I'll share one more before we move on, because I love punishment. I was at an early stage startup where we were demoing our data, and that's how we were performing our demos. And our product went from our core application to our CRM and showed interplay between the two. And so I'm literally showing my pipeline in Salesforce to prospects. We were about 8 months old as a company. This, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And I'm showing my pipeline to the person I'm selling. And, like a lot of startups, we started out in the SMB. And so we're demoing to small companies, we're selling small companies, we're doing small deals. And then we started moving up market. And so, as like the senior AE, I was doing all the big deals. And I'm on a call with somebody. And I give him the whole demo. I show him my pipeline in Salesforce. And he says, Joe, how much would this cost? And he said, a company your size, about 50K. As casual as I could. And he kind of looked at me and said, hey, that's really weird because you just showed me your pipeline. You've never done a deal over $7,000. And so good luck recovering. Good luck recovering when, Salesforce is the system of truth. So
sample data.
Yeah, exactly. It's illustrative workflows. All right. Why don't we take one more, and I'll go for a kumbaya question, because I think we're all going to be on the same page here. But my friend Jason asked, what are your thoughts on demos being constructed for more than just sales or pre-sales, but people in customer success as an example, or professional services, or like technical account training, right? Often these demos are not just to go close deals, but they're to support or add on or other. So anyone of our panelists have an opinion on the role of a demo engineering team being, post-sale or deeper into the org?
I actually have a pretty strong opinion. I could not agree more. It is so cross-functional. One of the first things we did with our tool is there's the roles function that you specify, and it looks a little different depending on if you're a CSM, if you're an SDR, if you're an AE, if you're an SC, and it's because the fundamentally your needs are different. But we see monthly active users that we track, and it's across the entire company. And people learn when they have their own environment, when they know how to use a tool, as opposed to just this central vague thing that's really generic. So I'm very supportive of the entire company learning how to demo, learning how to use a demo tool.
Beautiful. Thank you, Tristan. Okay, let's talk about, we'll launch our second poll here, and I'm always curious for feedback. I actually do read these and try to find ways that I can execute better for the community. And so please take a moment and, fill in the poll. And while you're doing that, we'll talk about the relationship that we're building with pre-sales here at Reprise. I'm really proud of this. Sales engineering or pre-sales is our number one user of our product. And so it's really important to me to build a relationship. And what I love most about the PreSales Collective is the way the community is forward-thinking and progressive and willing to do social programs, above and beyond just gathering members, but they invest in their members, they invest in the community, and I think they invest in society in general. And so I've got this not-for-profit called Inner City Weightlifting that I've been working with for years. They're back in my hometown of Boston. They're a really special program. They rescue people from the industrial prison complex in America. They take kids out of juvie. They take guys out of actual prison. And when they get out, they give them a path, upward mobility. They teach them to be personal trainers, and they use the money from these personal training sessions to hire caseworkers and social workers and counselors. And where recidivism rates in some segments in our country are like up over 80%, the student trainers at ICW have recidivism rates of less than 15%. And they're reducing gun violence, and they're reducing, trauma in our inner cities by breaking down these invisible walls of segregation. So they take guys that do student training at ICW, and they work with startups and venture-backed companies like mine. And, we get to work out. My trainer's name is Adam, and I've known him for years. And, he's a really close friend of mine. And, we work out every Thursday. And so I asked James and Yuji if they'd be open to this idea. We're going to open up our personal training on Thursdays to the entire PreSales Collective. And so it's an open invitation. It's every Thursday. It's at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. on the East Coast. It's an open invite. We'll share the landing page out. It's already in the social fitness we renamed the Peloton channel to social fitness. And so the invite's there, the landing page is there. It's an open invite to every member of PreSales Collective. I really hope you come in and do a workout with us. You don't need any equipment, like a towel, maybe a yoga mat. And, we jump on Zoom. You don't need your camera on. We won't record the session. And we do an hour of workouts, like jumping jacks and push-ups. It's a lot of fun. You'll get to meet some people. And my hope is to kind of spread awareness for the team at ICW and, help them meet more people like me that are looking to expand their minds and get to know some people maybe they never would have met otherwise. And so I'm really proud to bring this to PreSales. We're going to run it for the rest of the year. It's every Thursday. It's a free workout. It's public. And I would love it. I would love it. I would love nothing more than if you came in and did this workout and got to know my trainer. The second offer I'm proud to announce is a free demo. And I don't mean I'll give you a demo. I mean, I'll build your demo and I'll do it for free. So all members of PreSales Collective, come hit this other landing page and we'll build your first demo and we'll give you a path to a demo engineering career. And we'll help you recreate your product in a safe, scalable way that's usable for every department, just like we talked about on this call. And so I'm really uncomfortable with the self-promotion, so I'm going to move quickly to the next slide. And I'm going to tee up Andre to do the same. Andre, tell us about Troops.
Tough to follow up because that was a beautiful mission you just introduced, Joe. I'm going to give you a quick Troops commercial, guys. We're Troops. Our mission is to make work more human. The way we do that is actually really simple. We take all the systems you use every day that you don't want to log into, and we meet your people where they want to work, Slack and Microsoft Teams, and let them manage anything it is that they need to manage right from there. So for people like USEs, if you never want to touch Salesforce and manage all of your deals and pipelines straight from Slack and MS Teams with contextual prompts and easy to use action buttons, this is the product for you. For example, if you go to the next slide, we work with teams. Oh, actually, this slide probably wasn't used, but a team that we're very proud to work with is the SC team over at GitLab. Within 3 months, they were managing a ton of their updates and CRM interactions straight from Slack and saving a ton of time of their admin time as a result. And so shout out to GitLab. Thank you so much. And appreciate you guys having me on the webinar today.
Thanks, Trey. Sorry for putting you on the spot. Okay, final things. Let's announce some more events for the PreSales Collective. We've got an upcoming webinar that I'm going to moderate, and I love the panelists here. We've got amazing companies like Blue Yonder and Atlassian and Slack, and we're going to talk more about a topic like this one, like what's happening out there to the demo and how are we forced to sell and behave and support our customers differently. And so, don't miss that one. It's on May 18th. Also, you can see a full list of upcoming webinars. And I won't read them off to you. I think that's a little weird for me to read them to you, but, take a look, see what's interesting to you, and, let's get registered. Let's block off our time. And, quick announcement, PreSales Collective didn't start out as a Slack community. And, so they're working really hard to go regather all of the members of PreSales and make sure they're active in Slack. And so that 5,100 is actually really impressive. And, I've been watching it over the past few months. It's growing like crazy. Tell your friends, be active, be on social media about it. I'm really, really in love and impressed with the PreSales Collective. So if you have friends that are not in here, let's get them in here. Okay. Everybody, that's our show. I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you once again to Andre and Tristan and Brian. I really appreciate how open and upfront and the time you gave me to put this together. It means a lot to me that we're delivering good content for the members of PreSales. So I want to thank you. And I want to thank you to the guests for coming and hanging out. And if you're watching it after, thanks for giving us your time after the fact. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.